We're back at it. Weekend Gabe here on Weekend at Gabe's on Twitch. Give us a follow on the social medias across all platforms at Weekend Gabe. Joining us now, friend of the show. Been communicating and talking with this man for almost his entire career. It's been such a pleasure to watch his growth, his journey. I'm so glad he's here to talk about his new record, Innenstadt. None other than let me pull this down a little bit. None other than Neak here on Weekend Games. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I finally got in.
There you go. Hey, it's the internet. Don't worry about it. There's a good chance the internet connection may die on us, so don't worry. It may happen to me.
No, it's all good, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's always a pleasure talking to you, man. Always.
fantastic, man. I'm glad I can get a few minutes with you. The day after Thanksgiving, man. What are you most thankful for 2020, other than your health?
Man, I still got a sound mind. I'm
Facts.
grateful for that. The fact that I actually wake up and I know who I am. Some people,
Mhm.
man, some people, dude, 2020 has did a number on them, on their mental health. And, I'm just grateful to be able to have a healthy perspective on life still, despite everything that's going on. That's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah, I agree. The early part of the quarantine really did a number, I think, on me, but I'm sure it did a lot on everyone. And then, of course, not only the quarantine, but everything that followed later with the civil unrest and the protesting to social injustices and the murder of George Floyd. So that also added another layer onto an already difficult year. So yeah, I agree that I definitely had a lot of moments that were difficult to get up and really process what was happening around me, and the isolation too is definitely something that it's taken some adjusting to, working from home. And I think I liked it in the beginning, but now I kind of hate it. I'm not a fan of it anymore. I enjoy driving to work and coming home. Now it's like there's no break or in between.
It's funny. The funny that you said that because just the other day, I literally sat and thought about it because I work from home too. I still work and stuff, so I'm at home working and I'm just looking around and I'm like, yo, I'm really having social fatigue right now. Like I really
Mhm.
miss people. I
Yeah,
really want
absolutely.
to get back outside and even though you can go outside and stuff like that, but it just seems weird. It's like it's almost like house arrest. Like you outside, but you're not supposed to be outside,
Right, right.
or it's like you outside, but it's like what's the point? Like it's nothing to do. It just psychologically it feels that way. But yeah, I'm with you. You miss those bus rides, listen to an album, listen to some music. Man, you get to work, you probably don't really want to be there, but just that whole, you know, community exchange, just being out and about. We miss
Yeah.
that.
And there's a certain value of like going somewhere. You're I need to be somewhere because people are expecting me there, and now that's been removed. So I think people might have a sunken space of like, where's my value, and like, do people really need me, or am I important? Because either when you're just going through the doors and security is saying hi, and everyone that you even people that aren't in your department you're saying hi to, there, like you said, there's that communication and social engagement that's been completely wiped from our day to day, and but there was value in that.
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is that I feel like this year it brought a lot of challenge to people's identity, like who
Mm,
they really are, and who they are at their core. Like, who are you without what you do? You know what I mean? Like, when you have to sit with yourself, when you have to reflect, when you have to go to those deep places in your mind, like in your spirit, like, who am I? Like,
mm,
I felt like 2020 like forced a lot of people to do that because
yeah,
it canceled a lot of distractions. It eliminated a lot of the fluff out of our lives. And while a lot of us did need a reset, because I'm pretty sure when the shutdown started first happening and people started work from home, I believe a lot of people felt that was a blessing. Like, whew, I finally get to be around my kids more. I finally get to,
Sure.
don't have to deal with the hustle and bustle of life. But we didn't take into account the other things that come along with that. Whereas that
Right.
now you're not defined by what you do because it's that aspect, like you said, that community engagement isn't there. Now it's like, who am I outside of what I do? And you
Right.
got 24 hours a day to think about that
Yeah,
in the house.
exactly. Exactly. These
You
days
know,
got really long.
Man, I'm like, I was losing track of days to be honest with you. Like I was like, man, what is it? Thursday? No, it's Sunday. I mean, what is it? Tuesday?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it literally felt like it was like, what's the point of the day? Like knowing the actual day, it felt
Right.
like that for a little while, but
Yeah.
that's the quarantine, right?
Exactly. Well, you had a lot of time on your hands. It appears that you were able to put this album together, Innenstadt, which I was, sometimes when I'm just like listening, I just listen to stuff, and I kind of don't really question what I'm hearing. Like I don't look at things too quizzically anymore. And I was like, what does this mean? And of course, I was messaging you. I was like, you decided to name your album after a German word or a German town. It's like an inner city, but also can be construed as downtown. But I connected it to downtown because the artwork has you standing outside, and it looks like probably that what do you call that? Like right off Chicago in that area. That's it's still a low income community that's
Mhm.
right adjacent to the downtown area. So I identify that as like you're still in the downtown area, but you're still far away. It's like so far yet so close.
Yeah.
And it's like everything that's great about the city is only arm's distance away. Yet the struggle and the struggle and also the sadness of what the city resonates is also adjacent to it, and you can
Yes.
experience both of them. And so I
Yes.
kind of construed it as that.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's a lot of it was two different meanings, right? Downtown or the town in Germany. I think it's Frankfurt, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me.
Yeah.
But also it turns into in the English language inner city as well.
Mm,
So like having that whole aspect and then taking a picture and showing that dichotomy between like poor, rich, wealthy, non-wealthy, that kind of played into the concept of the album. So I felt like that was the perfect place to take that photo and just to kind of bring that to light
right.
because you got a lot of people who, like you said, I mean, a lot of people who lived in those Cabrini Green row houses. They came from Cabrini Green. They came from the Greens, and they came from Cabrini. Over the years, the buildings got condensed. A lot of families went into the row houses. Now those families are getting pulled out of those row houses.
Right.
So you figure, I wouldn't even say another 5 to 6 years. You won't even see that over there. Like
Yeah.
it's just a transition to take people out to get that property back because the property itself, the land has high value, but it doesn't have high value with that being in the being in the location of those Cabrini Green row houses.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's a transition plan, and it's been transitioning for the last 15, 20 years over there. But I wanted to highlight that. A lot of my concepts in the project is about just that inner city struggle. From my perspective, how I grew up here and just understanding, the dynamics in Chicago. You know.
Yeah. I think you captured that throughout the record of like the gentrification that's taking place, but also the gun violence. So it's like this ongoing attack on not only just Black Chicagoans but Black Americans, where they're just like this ongoing disadvantage of being in America, where there's just like these hurdles after hurdles after hurdles, and you kind of like break that down in each of the records, and it's in a polished way that. And I was mentioning this to one of our guests like a couple weeks ago, where I think now it's kind of a fad to talk about social injustice because it's the thing that's okay to talk about. But the way that you've always communicated it, at least I think so, it's a way that's first understandable and unique, and then also with this really thought-provoking style and delivery behind it that's smart. So it's not just like, F the police, we got to do better, but it's like this kind of like transitional like structure of the way that the songs are put together that makes it really really digestible, but then to track where we started and where we're at now. And I think that you do that throughout the album really well.
Yeah, well, number one, I appreciate that. And also, just to give you context to that, when I write records and when I have conversations about these topics, like my goal is perspective, right? My goal is for me to have the listener understand what I'm talking about, why I'm talking about it, and why it poses as an issue. So it's not to bash or it's not to come at somebody and say, hey, you know, you need to understand this or else. You need to get behind this or else, because the biggest issue is that you see a lot of backlash or you see a lot of resistance from anyone who doesn't support, equity for everybody, equality for everybody, is because they don't understand. You're talking about a frame of life that a person never had to experience. They never went through. They don't know anybody that went through this. So when you're talking about these things, it's almost like a disconnect. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, what's the point? I
Right.
mean, I don't understand what you're trying to get me to understand or get behind. So it's really to educate. I mean, that's really the first thing you got to do is bring awareness and education to the table so a person can say, wow, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't understand that. Now you can bridge the gap between what's going on and then provide solutions, have dialogue about it, understand another person's perspective outside of
Mhm.
what you experience.
Right.
So that's how I write music, and that's how I approach it, because I don't want to approach it in a judgmental fashion, almost like a person should and they very well should be aware of what's being discussed. It's like, no, a lot of people don't understand,
Yeah.
especially a lot of the people that listen to my music. I get messages all the time. Man, I didn't know that. I didn't think about it like that. That
Yeah.
was a dope concept. That's great. Now we can have a dialogue. Now we can push the conversation forward.
Yeah. What would Tupac say? I mean, this the question, well, what made you want to make a record that kind of like heightened or used some of his thoughts to what Tupac would think at this time, or why did you care enough to think like what would Tupac think about everything that's happening right now?
Yep. Because the funny thing, if you listen to that clip, for anybody who's heard the album, a lot of the concepts and the topics he's talking about in that excerpt on that song, it's still relevant today.
Mm,
So my whole point was to bring that excerpt into place so people can understand how much has not changed, how much has not shifted, and then
right.
start the dialogue to understand why is that? Why does it seem like that we keep kicking the can down the street? Why do we keep the rhetoric up of just having conversation about it, but there's no actual change going on? And then plus Tupac is one of my favorite artists, and he nailed it to me, that what he was talking about, he nailed it in terms of what's going on today. What's still a problem, you know, especially from an economic perspective.
What's the is it What's Really Here? Is that the song with the Tupac sample from Keep Your Head Up? Is that it?
No, that's Broken Princess. No,
Oh
no,
no,
keep your head up. That's Dear Mama.
the Dear Mama record, right? Exactly. Sorry.
Dear Mama. No, that's all. It's
Very
all
popular.
good.
Yeah, but I did sense there was like a Tupac. I don't want to say a theme, but like an acknowledgement of where Pac was, kind of infiltrated some of the thought process of what you wanted to do on this record. So it kind of felt like a lot of, I would say him, but there was that influence of him being in like dripping throughout this record.
Absolutely. I mean, he's one of the most prolific artists that I've ever heard, ever seen. And the thing that I loved about him the most is he just was not afraid to say what was on his mind.
Fact.
Right or wrong, he said it. It was a lot of stuff was controversial, a lot of stuff he received a lot of negative pushback, but at the end of the day, you knew what was on his mind. You knew what he thought, and you knew what he thought about the things that he was talking about. So it was no
Yeah.
guesswork. And I appreciate that. I honor that.
Well, one of my favorite records on this album, and this is something Broken Princess with Slot A, shout to Slot. that I
Uh,
think that it's a record that discusses protecting Black women because they are one of the like most disrespected, like not taken care of. Like we just need to do a better job of supporting Black women, and that's just not Black men, but that's just across the board in general, because Black women have done so much for this country and have like saved presidential elections because of because of the work that they've done. Shout out to Stacey Abrams. So that like
yeah.
so this was like just like a really, I think, an important record that you kind of hearing messaging, but no one's like really done this in a form that I hear it on this record. Did anything like in particular, like anything that I mentioned, kind of like spark the thought to do something like this, or was there kind of like a personal experience with that you may have had that like, yo, we need to really like pass this messaging and get this out there that our Black women are important and they need the security that they deserve.
Well, I would say it's probably stems from my own toxic masculinity, right?
Mm,
Just my own perception of women in general. And I think that it was not until maybe over the last 3 to 5 years where I started to learn, like, wait a minute, why am I thinking the way that I think about women? Because I'm conditioned the way, to think about women the way that I
absolutely.
think about them.
Right.
So it's like, a lesser vessel, or women should do this, or they should be that, or, kind of labeling women. You're like, wait a minute, we don't do that with men. Like we literally have the space and the fortitude within the country to pretty much do, whatever we desire to do. There is a such thing as male privilege, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but I think specifically to Black women, I never had that conversation. Well, first of all, I started with because I have a daughter. So thinking about my daughter, I'm thinking like, I want her to be able to grow up in a world and grow up in a space where she can be whatever she wants to be. She doesn't have to worry about labels or worried about if she's attracted to certain things that I'm going
Right.
to, from a misogynistic standpoint or from a standpoint of, no, women do this, men do that, to get her to alter how she feels or alter what's on her mind. So that was one of the main inspirations. And then also, like, I wanted to just take the time out to just solely just acknowledge Black women in that space. Like, look, you are fine the way you are, no matter what happened historically, no matter, what society tells you, no matter what music tells you, mainstream music, any of that. Like, you are fine the way you are. You are good the way you are.
Right.
And you have you have my support in the space to be who you desire to be without the male concepts and the male's pressures over you.
Yeah. I agree too that like the messaging could be out for not necessarily just Black men but across men in general, that we need to do a better job of respecting women and not doing the, I don't say the pigeonholing or the stereotyping and sort of the expectations of what a woman is supposed to be. That way of thinking is definitely age old, and I still hear from different cultures and it's a common occurrence I hear from the Latin community with men in general, and that's something that we need to work on and address. And even with my wife and we're like, listen, I have two young boys, as you know, and the way that they say me treat my wife is the way that they're going to treat the women or the whoever their partner is in life, and that's going to be the expectation or the threshold. And so it's my responsibility to demonstrate what a caring and loving relationship looks like, so that they too can demonstrate that as well. And that all starts in the home, and we all need to do a better job of doing that work, because I've seen too many times on these social medias where men are super uber disrespectful to women, and people are laughing and shit, and like that's not cool. Like, and I can't support that, and I just feel like that's like a from the men in this country or around the world, that we have to do a better job at that.
I mean, even not saying nothing is supporting it, and that's what I used to do, and that's the space that I was in. I was just like, that's bro's business. I don't get into that. How he feels.
Right.
It's not to blast anybody or put anybody on blast online either, but it also put you in a space where you can bring a fresh perspective to somebody. A question
Sure.
why they feel the way they feel or say what they're saying. It ain't necessarily to demonize anybody either, because once again, a lot of people don't know they're being disrespectful while being disrespectful. I was one of them. And sometimes I may still come off as disrespectful because I'm human. I'm not perfect, so I'm still learning as I go.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but the thing is, we have to. Once you know better, you do better, man. And the thing is, if a person, especially with other, men to men, if they know that you got their best interests at heart, they know that you really love them for real, then they won't take an offense to it. And if they do, they know at some point that, look, if he's telling me this, it's something to it because I know that he wants the best for me.
Right.
And if a person isn't ready to hear it, you got to love them where they at. You don't demonize them or judge them, but that don't mean that you don't hold an account.
Yeah. That's one of the comments we have in the chat space. Shout out to St. Ripley. He's like, we have to hold each other accountable. And I think that could be, and that's sort of the broader question too of like just racism in general. Like we need to hold family members and others accountable for the things that they're doing, how they're representing. And, there's a different issues that we need to be better at checking people on and being prepared to maybe distance ourselves or cut those people out from our space if they're not ready to adapt or change their ideology or behaviors. So that's sort of a broader issue that we all need to focus on working on.
Yeah, everybody, man. I mean, it's like whether we know it. I mean, we all live in the same context and in the same space on the same land in the same country. Like at the end of the day, we are all still family at the end of the day. So you can look at me or I can look at you in a certain light and have preconceived notions and make judgments and all of these other things, but it leaves you in a space where you can't grow. It leaves you in a space of ignorance, and it leaves you in a devolved space. You know, what good is that if you come to the table already believing what you believe,
Right.
without setting yourself up to receive a fresh perspective, or willing to receive a fresh perspective? If you come to the table just trying to prove your points, you might as well stop talking. What's the
Right.
point? That's how I feel about it when it comes to
Absolutely.
race relations and stuff.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic record. It's out there on all streaming platforms. You carried a lot of the bulk of the production. Slot has some production credits on this as well.
Yes.
You yourself, the thing that I love about you, and I've mentioned this to Slot, and we talked about this during show number 1, is just how much of your growth and how much just drive that you have. Like, you were like finishing your master's degree, and you had
Yeah.
2 young kids. You're working like, and then you learn how to produce music, and then you're still writing records. You're touring. Well, before the Rona hit, but you guys were out there doing dates in New York and all over the country. And you're the
24
epitome
cities.
of like, there's no excuses. Like,
Now
there's
you
no
sound
excuses. Whatever you think excuses. Like, look to Neak, and he'll tell you like, there's no reason why you can't do this.
man. It really is no excuses. Like I've sat back and made excuses and been like, that's an excuse, right? I've said that to myself, like, you BSing, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
but a lot of times, the and just to give an insight for an artist, and I'm just speaking in general. I'm not saying this for every artist, but we are our own worst critics. So what a lot of people see as procrastination is
Right.
really we just being hard on ourselves. Like I guarantee you, there's a lot of artists that work every day, create almost every other day, got albums ready to go, but they're not sure if it's going to be well received. They're not sure if
Mm,
people are going to get behind it. They're not sure if it's going to really make an impact. So all of that insecurity is going on, and next thing you know, a year then went past, 2 years, 3 years, and you like, wait a minute, I haven't released anything, but I'm
right.
steady creating because it's a fear factor that's going on. But I mean, I got a bigger mindset when it comes to that because it does come off as fear and things like that, but really It's just adapting to the new music industry. The music industry has shifted. So you can't, and it's just my opinion, you can't bank your whole life on that one classic album and to think that you're going to ride off that one body of work for the next 3, 4, 5 years. It just doesn't work that way anymore. People don't
Right.
even consume music to that capacity anymore. Like music fits in people's lives now. It's not the other way around. We used to go look for it, break it down, search for it, want to know the credits, want to know who did what, want to know the
Yep.
backstory. Now it's like music fits in the lives of people. So if your music means something, if it has a concept, if it touches home, in the hearts of certain people, then they fit it into their lives. But it's not the other way around anymore. So I feel like a lot of artists don't know how to adapt to that, and that's why you see a lot of really great artists, struggling to put out music.
Yeah. Well, this is a great record that everyone needs to put into their lives, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan, but because I really do appreciate the record, and I'm not upset that you didn't include me on the "What Do You Believe in" remix. I'm gonna make a believer out of you and Slot that my bars are real and that I have something to say, and then that I'm going to get someone to give me a shot, whether it's you guys or not. Someone's going to give me a
Hey,
shot
look,
and let me get on. But it's cool though. I understand. Listen, you have a lot of heavy hitters on there. Fillmore's on there, and he's a monster. He's a beast, and I respect that. However, one day. But either way, the record is out there. Interstand is out there. Please, everyone, go stream it. Neek, tell people how they can find you and how they can stay in touch with what you're doing.
absolutely. You can go to my website directly at neak, neak-co.com. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at neak, neak underscore undefined, just like the word. And yeah, those two places you can find me at. Hit me up, reach out, let me know what you think about the new album, and man, just gonna keep it going.
There you go, man. I appreciate your time so much tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let's talk soon. All right.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
All right. That's Neek here on Weekend at Gabe's joining us. His new album, Innenstadt, is out there. Please go stream it and put that into your life. It's the thing to do.